Good morning, everyone. We've still got about 1 minute left. Just waiting for a few people to come in. Welcome everyone to this morning's event from Share Screen Africa. It's great to see some familiar faces. Stuart Thompson, I've just seen you pop in. Welcome. Thank you for coming back. We had a great discussion with Stuart for last week's talk, and I'm hoping that we will have a great discussion for this week's talk. So it is 11 o'clock now, so I am going to start. First of all, good morning, everyone. My name is Ciel Vaughan. I will be your host for this morning's event. I wanted to get a really warm welcome to everybody that's joining us for this fourth installment of our series from Share Screen Africa, the Maasai Mara Conservation Communities and Cattle. A very, very warm welcome as well to our primary audience for this morning's talk, which is the students from the Wildlife Tourism College. We thank them very much for allowing us to put on this event. And finally, a very warm welcome to Mr. Jackson Sassine. Jackson is the manager of the Pardamat Conservation Area, and he will be our speaker this morning. And this is a very special talk for us today because our primary audience, the Wildlife Tourism College, is actually located in the Pardamat Conservation Area. So Jackson is a really dedicated conservation and community expert. He's got a strong passion for natural resource preservation and enhancing livelihoods. He excels in designing and implementing sustainable projects, and he's secured substantial funding of a massive $3.68 million from diverse donors for the establishment of the Pardamat Conservation Area, which has been a huge benefit to the local Maasai landholding families. But not only that, his accomplishments also include overseeing various sustainability initiatives such as commercial livestock, educational tourism facilities, and also a public airstrip within the conservation area. Jackson has also played a pivotal role in combating the illegal wildlife trade in the area, and has managed to also reduce poaching to 0 cases, which is incredible, securing 20,000 acres of critical wildlife corridors, and also fostering partnerships with local communities, local government entities, and conservation organizations. So as the manager of Pardamat Conservation Area, which is in the greater Maasai Mara ecosystem, Jackson leads a team of 35 staff members and ensured an inclusive governance structures, which include 30% female representation. And this contributes to the holistic well-being of both the biodiversity and the indigenous communities within the Maasai Mara area. So thank you so much, Jackson, for being our speaker today. Really, really looking forward to your talk. I hope everyone enjoys it. Just a little bit of housekeeping before we start. We will have about 40 minutes for this talk, and then we will have a Q&A session afterwards. And if you do think of any questions throughout the talk, feel free to pop them in the chat, and I will read them out at the end. Or once the talk is finished, if you feel like you've got questions, you're more than welcome to raise your hand using the function on Zoom or turn on your camera and wave at me. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and invite Jackson to share his screen and give his talk. Thanks, Jackson.
Thank you, Shele. I'm not sure I'm pronouncing your name very well for that very elaborate introduction about myself. And to all the audience, you're all welcome to the Share Screen Africa talk. And today I'll be going to share with you the talk will be about conservation, communities, and cattle in the Mara landscape. And we'll also be talking about looking at how we engage in community to conserve, to create environment that promote conservation, and while trying to improve the livelihoods of the people that are living within the Pardamat Conservation Area. And before I go on into the details of the presentation, probably I will want to give you a bit of history. She's done a bit of introduction about myself, my professional background and the achievements that I've been able to achieve. But I just wanted to start with my story or my journey in conservation. And how it all started is that when, after college in 2006, I joined an institute called International Livestock Research Institute to support research in the Mara. Then we were studying the interaction between wildlife, human with their livestock, within the landscape, in trying to see what is the relationship between livestock and wildlife, wildlife and human, um, in trying to come up with with to inform policy, to inform decision making across the landscape and also to government. And the International Livestock Research Institute then were doing a study to see whether wildlife can coexist. Do we need to have separate or exclusive areas for wildlife conservation and exclusive areas for human settlement? And yes, so that is what research was looking into. So that's where I began interacting with wildlife conservation. As much as I was born and raised in the Mara, with this wildlife, because it's my home area. I know most of the people from the Wildlife Tourism College knows me from outside this job. I grew up with this wildlife, but the actual interaction with now conservation, with our trying to study, apart from the indigenous knowledge, I started interacting with this wildlife way back in 2006, doing the actual research. And that research showed that really wildlife cannot exist in places where livestock and people are not absent. And after a few years, I am back to another things. Then back in 2010, when Naboisho Conservancy was being established, then I was invited by Basecamp to explore. By Basecamp Foundation, which was then the implementing organization for the establishment of Naboisho Conservancy to support the establishment of Naboisho, and especially in implementing projects that were linked to conservation, improving livelihoods of the people, linking all that to the work that we are doing in conservation. So I'd also actively for 7 good years worked with the Mara communities in education programs, in green energy, water, provision for water, in health programs, and so on. There are quite a number of them, which we were working on in trying to improve the livelihoods of the people that are living with this wildlife. And the whole goal was actually to make people realize the benefits, other than the direct benefits, other than the direct income they are getting from wildlife in form of leases, in form of employment. What are these other changes? What are these other livelihood improvement programs that can be as a result of wildlife conservation? And that is exactly what I was doing with Basecamp then, working in Naboisho communities, and also have really been involved in the establishment of the Naboisho Conservancy. I was assisting in community mobilization and even to the actual signing up of the leases at the time. And after that, then Maasai Mara Wildlife Conservancy Association hired me to work with the community in PCA to establish a new conservation model, which we are implementing at the moment. Probably for the benefit of those people that are not from Kenya, I would want to show you where we are located. So in the context of Africa, you can see where Kenya is. It is that green guy. Then in Kenya, to the right of my screen, you can see the map of Kenya and where the Mara ecosystem is. And then again, in the Mara ecosystem, you would see that, I don't know whether to call it brown, pardon my color blindness, or whatever that is Pardamat, that brown patch in the middle. And I want to give you a bit of a story about Pardamat and how it ended up being what it is today, which is a dual use conservation model. Pardamat is in one group ranch with Pardamat Conservancy. I'm not sure whether you guys are able to see, but I don't know if, even when I point it, you cannot be able to see it. But Marano Conservancy, Olale Motorogi, and Naboisho all fall under one group ranch. And during the subdivision of this land, the landowners of quite the larger group ranch zoned the area and identified Maranok, Olari Motorogi, and Naboisho as wildlife conservation areas, and Pardamat was set aside for human settlement. So the land demarcation or subdivision was tailored in a way that a landowner will have a piece of land in Pardamat and a piece of land in either of the conservancies that I've mentioned, so that they can have a place to stay, but also land in conservancy, so that they can also derive benefits or benefit from conservation. The reason behind that is because Pardamat as an area is rich in natural resource. Water is available throughout the year. We have salt lakes in Pardamat and good vegetation. Then the landowners of the group ranch thought it was an ideal place for them to settle, which it is because of availability of all those resources that I've mentioned. Then without making a consideration that these resources that are available within PCA are equally of great importance to wildlife as much as they are of importance to human. And with the people coming into Pardamat in big numbers, then pressure started mounting, and wildlife with the establishment, of Naboisho, Maranoth Conservancy, Olari Motorogi, every conservancy that was established, people that were living within those conservation areas were asked to move into Pardamat to settle so that they can give space for wildlife. With the number of people increasing within the conservation area and sparsely distributed across the conservation area, pressure started mounting on the land, on natural resource, where people, livestock, and wildlife are competing for the same resources. Back in 2012, 13, 14, that's when the pressure was mounting up, and people started rushing into fencing the area. Try to keep off the wildlife, with good intentions, of course, because they have left aside land for conservation, but they did not know that this wildlife still required the space they are living in. Because of that, the community was a bit unhappy with wildlife. They were a bit agitated, and being a conservation area, being an area that is a settlement area, free for all, anybody can walk into PCA and walk out, because everybody, it's people are distributed across the whole area. Poachers took the advantage of that situation, and they started recruiting local youths to kill to engage in ivory trade, and they started killing elephants for ivory. And back in 2014, 2015, Pardamat was recording the highest number of poaching cases in the country, and we actually hitting the headlines of news every other time as a leading poaching zone within the landscape and also perhaps their country. So with all that, the community came together and realized that is a problem. It's a big problem, because we always having issues with government. We are having issues with the Kenya Wildlife Service as a community. And the community realized that something needs to happen. they came to realize to themselves that they cannot do away with the wildlife, and then instead they resolved into accommodating this wildlife. What they've done, that's where the whole idea of a mixed model conservancy was born. Sorry, I think I misplaced that slide. This is where this idea was born, and the community came to resolve that we need to come up with a new conservation model, of course, with the support of MNWCA and other partners, to promote the coexistence of wildlife within the same space, so that the community benefits from the wildlife that is in their land, and also the wildlife benefits by being housed by the communities on their land. Good. So Pardamat is 64,000 acres in size with 850 landowners. So the whole 850 landowners have to sit down and agree on common grounds for them to be able to establish a conservancy. And what they did, they elected 15 trustees, because they organized themselves in a trust. They elected 15 trustees. 4 of them are women, as mentioned by Sheila, that our board is inclusive of 30% women representation. And that also, that trust has a company, a management company, which is jointly, whose directors are jointly from the community, and also the partners that we are working with, be it tourism partners, and the Wildlife Tourism College also has a slot in that. And of course, we have our ranchers who are providing security. And when I talked about the poaching in Pardamat back in 2015, that was before our ranchers came on the ground. It's not 100% by the rangers. I know by a large extent the rangers contributed a lot in combating illegal wildlife trade as the community, the conservancy, but really the community also played a very great role in ensuring that poaching that was rampant within the area has reduced immensely. So our rangers are doing the daily patrols to provide security, but also to collect wildlife-related data to inform management. So, and we also have a team of total of 35 members of staff, that is plus the rangers, who are also supporting the work we are doing. That is the organization, and I'm also going to talk about the ecological value or importance of this area. I know I've mentioned this in a nutshell when I was making the introduction. This area is a dry season range for elephants, and if you can see that photo very keenly, you will see a lot of calves in that big herd. That's actually a herd outside the Wildlife Tourism College, and probably the students from the Wildlife Tourism College can relate with that environment. And there are a lot of calves, meaning that Pardamat Conservation Area is not only a dry season range for the elephants, but also it's a breeding zone for them. You can see the numbers. It's now becoming safe compared to 2014, 2015, where we recorded 26 cases of poaching in 1 year. You can imagine the number of the herds that we have within the conservancy today. Then you would not find that big herd, because they were chased left, center, right by the poachers, and they are now relaxed in big numbers or in big herds, because the conservation area is safe for them today. It's also a denning zone for the endangered wild dog species. This is a species that we've seen again for after almost over a decade, when Pardamat got established. I think we started seeing these wild dogs back in 2014, 18, after a very long time of disappearing from the landscape and also from the hills. The hills of Pardamat are really a good habitat and denning area for the wild dogs. Pardamat also forms the northern corridor for the loiter migration. I know today the loiter migration has disappeared because of human activities. It's because of settlement, because of fencing in the loiter plains and also in other parts of Pardamat Conservation Area. But Pardamat is a corridor for the loiter, not only for the loiter migration, but also for the conservancies. It's a northern corridor connecting the southern conservancies to the northern conservancies. So if you look at the map, if you bring out PCA or you delete PCA from that, there will be a big link between the northern and the southern part of the Mara ecosystem. I mentioned about the vegetation, the salt lick, the water, and so on. So it's a home for a variety of other wildlife species. You talk of giraffes, zebras, wild-beast, so and so on. So there are also other wildlife species that are utilizing the Pardamat Conservation Area, and as a result of the availability of those natural resources that I've talked about earlier. There are challenges that we have in PCA. I mentioned about competition and pressure. So as a result of mounting pressure, the community rushed into fencing their land, thinking that fences are a solution to the interaction between the community and the wildlife. But it is not. It's only a problem. It's only disastrous and dangerous for our wildlife and also for human. We've had cases of people interacting with wildlife in a bad way, especially the elephants, because the elephants were blocked by the fences, and they only had the little space left to utilize where the people are also utilizing. School-going kids are having problems because elephants are now forced to go along the roads. So every morning, when kids are going to school, they are escorted every time, either by a motorbike, by cars, by their parents, because it's not safe for them to walk anymore. Compared to before, I was brought up, I was brought up in Pardamat. I used to walk to school every morning with no problem. And there were a lot more elephants then than today. And the reason why we are having this problem today is because space is shrinking every day. Hideouts for the elephants, the corridors elephants would utilize before are not there anymore. And that's why they are utilizing the same paths, the same road kids would use to go to school. And of course, we've had several bad interaction for that matter, between of people and wildlife, to some even losing their life just because a fence has blocked elephants from moving away from the road. So really, you can see the danger of the fencing. Is dangerous for people, but equally very dangerous for the wildlife. Those are photos of two giraffes, one baby giraffe and one big female, and the wildebeest that were killed by fences. That's a team of KWS and our rangers that were trying to rescue that giraffe, but it succumbed. And really, then something has to happen. Otherwise, we will continue seeing much worse than this. The other challenge we are facing in Pardamat is predation. This is the cost of living with this wildlife. It's the price we are paying as landowners. It's a price we are paying as livestock keepers to accommodate this wildlife. It's not easy. These are three different cases where hyenas got into sheep pens and killed them in big numbers. And, among many other incidences that we've reported over the years. So predation is also a big issue. Hyenas are the leading, I don't know. The reason being, I think it's out of greed, or I don't know, but lions are always smart predators. They can kill one cow and leave the boma, while a hyena would always think that they can consume what is before them at a go. And every time they are killing in big numbers because they think their stomach can be able to accommodate all what is in a sheep pen. As a conservancy, we still are struggling, especially in terms of income. It's a challenge because of the nature of the conservancy. It's not as attractive as other open spaces, and that's why sustainability is not guaranteed as quickly as possible. Some of the interventions, community engagement, like I mentioned, that we are actively engaging communities in order to create this conservation area, in order to create space for wildlife, in order to coexist peacefully with this wildlife. So from time to time, we hold community meetings, we call them on meetings, involve them from planning through implementation and so on and so forth. So it's always very important to work with communities in order to be able to have them on board in implementing or in rolling out these conservation interventions. And these are the kind of meetings that we hold with the community. And that's why I mentioned earlier, when as much as our rangers, because we have a good team of 27 that are all almost 90% trained with the Kenya Wildlife Service Law Enforcement Academy, but a lot on community involvement. Today, you will get a call from a community member telling you that we've seen a suspicious motorbike at night. We've seen a vehicle passing that we don't know we don't know. Kindly ask your rangers to check. So we've really enjoyed a lot of information from the community, and that has really helped us to combat the illegal activities and also roll out the conservation programs that we are rolling. We are rolling. We also engage in women, especially in their socio-economic empowerment activities. So we also have them on board. That's a women's meeting. We're also discussing conservation issues. We're also discussing their empowerment programs and how can conservation be able to support them in what they are doing or to improve their daily their living. The other interventions that we do is defencing. And at the moment, we have over 5,000 acres of land defensed of critical wildlife corridors. You can see our teams pulling down the fences, loading a tractor, and materials that are dumped next to our offices from defencing. So we also do work together with the community to pull down the fences that are blocking the critical wildlife corridors. And so far, 5,000 acres of such corridors are opened within Pardamat Conservation Area. So out of the 20,000 acres of land that has been leased, 5,000 acres was under heavy fences. And, we are happy to report that together with the community, we were able to open that amount of land. And we always take this material to be reused in schools and other public institutions to secure their premises, to also do forestation, and so on and so forth. In also trying to address the issue of predation, we are installing predator-proof bomas to landowners that have suffered to predation. that old mzee lost more than 100 of his sheep to one hyena at night. And we installed a predator-proof bomber for him. And that predator-proof bomber, I was just skeptical from saying it's 100%, but he has reported zero um, night predation since the installation of that bomber. And we've already installed 65 such bombers to our landowners who suffered from predation. I know one would ask me their coexistence, people are losing their livelihoods to hyenas and predators, other predators, by accommodating them. This is what we are doing. We are not able to compensate. I know there are other people that are doing a bit of consolation. We are not yet there as a conservancy, but what we are trying to do is to ensure that every other time a landowner suffers from predation, we install a predator-proof bomber for them to ensure security of their livestock at night, and therefore try to encourage them to be taking care of their livestock at night. This is part of the socio-economic empowerment for the women. At the Wildlife Tourism College, we have a tourist facility in it, and the women from the community would come and sell their beadwork to the international guests at the Wildlife Tourism College. And so we are creating as a conservancy that opportunity for women to make income out of what they can be able to do without, home. This is work they do naturally. It is work that do not require any skills or training because they were born doing it. They grew up doing it. Their grandmothers, their mothers were doing it. So it's work they know. And what we are trying to do is just to create that opportunity for them to be able to make a living out of the work they've been doing throughout their life. We also support education through bursaries. We offer 200 bursaries every school opening, that is quarterly. It's quarterly. We have 3 quarters in a year, yes. So every school opening, we offer 200 bursaries to school-going children. This is a board of, these are our trustees. These are our trustees. It's actually a bursary committee evaluating or trying to go through the documents for students, because the bursary is an entitlement of every landowner. So if you're a landowner, you are contributing to a kitty, which the Conservancy is also contributing money into it. So it's a joint kitty, and normally the eligibility of getting a bursary is land ownership. If you are a landowner in PCA, then as Pardamat, you are entitled to have a bursary for your school-going children. We also are engaging school-going children and also youths in the community through conservation education, and especially our volunteers from the Edu Africa are working a lot with the school-going children on conservation education, recreational activities, just to start introducing our children in a very early age to wildlife conservation, so that they know wildlife conservation way in advance, early in advance, so it's not their first time to hear about conservation when they are joining a college like the Wildlife Tourism College or any other university, so that they grow up conservationists. Yeah, we also promote the Maasai culture as Pardamat, and when we have events like the Maa cultural event, we attended that and participated into it, and also are encouraging, our guests are also visiting homes to interact with the community, to learn their culture. So, like you can see, there's a guest that is milking a cow. It's part of the Maasai culture that women would know how to milk cows and so on and so forth. So we promote the Maasai culture, not only with locally, but also to the international guests that are coming to Pardamat Conservation Area, so that they can also be able to appreciate this culture, the rich culture of the Maasai, which is the reason why we the Maasai are housing the wildlife or coexisting with wildlife. I grew up knowing that eating meat from um, wild meat is a taboo. It's that's culture, and it's a very good culture to us. It's it's an offense that is punishable among the Maasais when one kills and start feeding on wild beast or any other wildlife. So that is what has really made the Maasai community to tolerate and live with this wildlife for many years. And that's the kind of culture we are trying to promote and sell out to other communities so that they can as well embrace conservation in that perspective. Infrastructure development is also another area of support that we are doing or an intervention. This area had very poor roads, like 2 3 years ago, when it rains in Pardamat, a patient cannot access medication. They cannot access a clinic. If you want to go to the market, people are going hungry because of poor roads. They cannot go to the market to get food for themselves. So really, road networks was very bad within this area. And as Pardamat at the moment, we've opened about 70 kilometers of roads within the conservancy, not only for patrols and access and game drives, but also to create access to markets and healthcare centers by the local communities, the Pardamat landowners. Water is another area. We are working with the communities to rehabilitate, to protect springs, rehabilitate existing water projects to ensure that access to clean and safe water by communities is also guaranteed in order to reduce the waterborne or water-related diseases as a result of lack of clean and safe water for drinking. And we are not only protecting sources and drilling boreholes, but also looking at ensuring distribution of water to communities is also done. Environmental conservation, we are working. That is a team from Edu Africa. They've really been doing a very good job. They are uprooting bird species of, the invasive species within the conservancy. That is a team uprooting Datura stramonium. It's a poisonous plant and also invasive in nature. They're also opening roads within the conservancy to ensure in the thickets to ensure that we are able to access everywhere within the conservancy. So environmental conservation is also another key area, and especially because of the climate change, we're working hard to ensure that we work with communities to ensure that they don't do overgrazing. We control soil erosion in our roads and many other activities that we are doing to ensure that the land is productive for the community. Because when this land is productive for them, not only for wildlife, but it can also be productive for their livestock in order to earn a living. And all we are doing here is to ensure that we are doing conservation that also promotes livelihood improvement. And part of it is to ensure that our rangelands are healthy for their livestock. Yeah, establishment of the Wildlife Tourism College is another big one, big achievement for PCA. It's one of the interventions to address, diminishing wildlife population, loss of habitat, climate change mitigation, youth unemployment, human-wildlife conflicts, community economic development, and so on. How it is doing that is by providing training opportunities to our local students, just to ensure that our local students have employable skills. Other than employable skills, in order to improve their livelihoods, they also have knowledge to conserve. We have expertise on the ground to help conserve the environment, help conserve, mitigate all the challenges that we've highlighted herein, and even including addressing the global challenge of climate change. So Wildlife Tourism College at the moment has the 40 students, and 4 courses are offered within the Wildlife Tourism College to in different disciplines. And this is ranging from environmental conservation, wildlife management, tourism, tour guiding, and so on. So those are the courses that are offered within the college. This college is also providing income to the Conservancy through the educational tourism campus within the college. Because the other reason why we established the college, apart from creating the opportunity or providing a solution to above highlighted problems, was also to address the challenge of income, and through the educational tourism volunteers program, where we also are now making income that can support our conservancy operations. In sustainability, again, a continuation, ecotourism is one other area. 2 camps. One, a fly camp already has been established, and another one is coming soon, probably before end of the year. And a public airstrip has also been established in the Conservancy to support also to generate income for the Conservancy. A livestock program has been running for the since 2018. And this program is a commercial livestock project, which is aimed at generating income for the Conservancy. Is a supplement to ecotourism within the conservation area. Carbon is another area that we are looking at expand in order to also generate income. Of course, we are working with several other partners. We have the Maasai Mara Wildlife Conservancy Association. The One Mara Carbon Project is working closely with us to ensure that carbon development is realized within the landscape, and Pardamat stands a very high chance. Pardamat is one of the beneficiaries also of the carbon program, and that is the other areas we are tapping into to ensure sustainability of the conservation area, and that livelihoods are improved within the conservancy. Yes, and the other thing is partnership. Very important. Partnership. All we are doing cannot happen. You cannot do it in isolation. You cannot do that. You cannot be able to achieve what we've achieved so far by yourself. So we have community, we have international community, we have the local community, international community, donors, and other international institutions that are partnering with us in order to achieve what we ought to achieve. And these are the partners we are working with. There's a list of partners we have. And our vision, coexistence, wildlife, people, and livestock are all coexisting peacefully. And, we have happy communities that are, dancing out of happiness, that are enjoying the benefits from wildlife, and livestock that are grazing harmoniously together with livestock. Thank you.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you so much, Jackson. That was a really, really interesting talk. It's so wonderful to hear about all the amazing work that you're doing at Pardamat, and really great to see such an amazing example of how actually we can coexist with communities and wildlife and livestock peacefully, as you said. So really great work, and thank you very much for that. I am now going to take a few questions that we've got from the chat, and then I would like to defer to our primary audience. But first of all, we've got a comment from John Lego. John, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. John's asking, how does the predator-proof bomas prevent the predators from preying on the livestock?
Do you want me to answer as you ask? Good. Predator-proof bomas are fortified bomas, and they are predator-proof. It means it's a strong enclosure that is constructed using a combination of metal stands, poles, and triple twisted chain links with high tensile, so they cannot predators cannot get into through it to access the livestock.
Great. Thank you for that, Jackson. We've got another question in the chat from Stuart Thompson. Whilst fencing is an issue in PCA, it is by no means unique to your conservancy. Individual landowners fencing their land at face value seems at odds with the pastoralist way of life. Why do you think the Maasai have turned to this form of land management?
Okay, can you come up again?
So Stuart's saying that fencing is an issue in PCA, but also an issue not just in your conservancy. So he's asking, why do you think the Maasai have turned to this form of land management? Because it kind of goes against their pastoralist nature.
Oh yeah, I think the reason behind this form of land management, that is of fragmenting and fencing land, is a result of land subdivision. All this started with land subdivision. The Maasai over the years, before the land has been subdivided, was a communal community. They lived communally. They shared their natural resource together. But I think what has necessitated this is the land privatization. And of course, people will always want to, that sense of entitlement, that these are my beacons, this is where my land is. People would want always to clearly show where the land is, and that I have control over this by myself. I know it's not a good way, a good form of land management, but land subdivision is the reason behind all that.
Yeah, it's a real issue, isn't it, Jackson? Thank you for that. Just quickly, everyone, before I go on to the next question, we will be launching a poll just popping up on your screen there for those of you that are watching from your screens at home. If you wouldn't mind just answering that quickly for us. We do, Share Screen's a very new kind of organization, and we're just working out how everything's going. So we'd love to have your feedback on that poll. So thank you very much for that. And while people are answering that, Paul Jackson, I've got another question here from Rubibi Ben Johnson. Rubibi, thanks again. Rubibi's been here every week. It's really great to have him here. So Jackson, he's enjoying the presentation. You mentioned that fencing is a disaster for wildlife, and I believe fences were installed as a solution to protect adjacent farming activities carried out by the community. What do you consider as a sustainable solution or a One Health approach to this situation?
Yeah, yes, indeed, fencing is a disaster to wildlife only because it's not planned. So the only solution to it is planning. And that's what we are trying to embark at PCA, coming up with plans, identifying all the critical wildlife corridors. And if you would want to make a fence, then avoid the historical wildlife corridors. Otherwise, when you block a corridor that wildlife would utilize to access water or salt lake, of course, they will always break into your fence, and it becomes a challenge for them. So planning is the main solution, and especially if people can conform to the plans that will be put in place.
Great, thank you, Jackson. Yeah, very important point. So I see that Arnold Aricho has had his hand up for a while. Arnold, we'd love to take your question, and then after that I will go to our primary audience, the Wildlife Tourism College. So Arnold, could you unmute yourself, please, and ask your question?
Thank you. I'm very glad for the Pardamat Conservation Area for the great efforts of conservation they are doing. Also for the re-emergence of the wild dogs, which actually is becoming something very, very common, and actually re-emerging these very, very key stone species in this environment. And my question is, being in the buffer zone, we have the area have to experience a lot of human wildlife conflict. And maybe at some point, by the reemergence of these wild dogs, you might experience even these diseases like rabies and these. So, how is this Pardamat conservation area looking upon this issue? Thank you.
Thank you, Arnold, for that very important concern and question at the same time. Yes, indeed, we know wild dog, first of all, another main source of conflict within the conservancy, because every time they are around, they will always cause chaos, especially feeding on goats. And in regards to, and in that, we always encourage herders to take care of, to be keen during the day. Otherwise, we have no real solution to it at the moment. And as far as rabies is concerned, we are working with a team of doctors that we are conducting an annual anti-rabies campaign for our dogs, for the domestic dogs, to ensure that we prevent rabies within the conservation area. So it's a big campaign that is happening within all the areas where the wild dogs are highly utilizing. That's an Onkishu Conservancy, Pardamat, and conservation areas, and some parts of Lemek and Oljoro.
Great, thank you very much for that, Jackson. So, Brian, I have seen your hand go up. If you wouldn't mind just waiting 1 second, I'd love to ask Peterson to unmute and the students from WTC to just see if they have any questions on their side.
Yes, we do. Thanks, Jackson, for your presentation. We have a few questions which are coming up shortly.
Could you talk a little more, sorry, I'm Stephanie and I'm one of the volunteers with African Impact. I just got here yesterday. So you were mentioning about Maasai and how they do not eat the wildlife. Could you talk a little bit more on the Maasai relationship with wildlife and how that came about and why they don't rely on wildlife for food?
The Maasai community is a pastoral community. It's a livestock keeping community. And to them, wildlife was wild and not meant for human consumption. It's believed that when you have livestock, when you eat from, the wild meat, you either lose your cows or even your cows will cease yielding more milk. That's what I grew up knowing. I think it's just because they had their own food and they were conservationists in nature. They did not. They knew that wildlife was not meant for human consumption, so their culture did not allow them to feed on this wildlife. And the only reason is because they had their own livestock. Why they were doing that? It's because they did not want to make people lazy, to work hard to get more to get livestock and accumulate wealth. If people are resolved into eating wildlife, utilizing wildlife for food, then they would not go. They would not want to go hard or do what it takes for them to get livestock. So we had a community within the Maasai that purely dependent with the hunters and the gatherers. They were really despised by the community because to them is a lower standard of living when you are dependent on wild meat than depending on the livestock. So it's a question of standard. It's a question of also hard work. People were encouraged to look for their own food instead of killing wildlife for food. So that's, I think, the reason why they did not. And traditionally, it's just they just made it a taboo for one to eat from the wild. wild meat. I remember there was a day back in the 90s, I was herding as a young boy, and I would leave home from 7 a.m. That's when I would have my breakfast and lunch. Come back home with cows at 7. And we happened to have eaten meat from zebra, which we were fed meat of a zebra by the dorobos or the hunters in the bushes. Of course, we found some nice barbecue, and we were really very hungry as young boys. Of course, why not? Then we had the meat. Coming home, our my uncle smelled that we ate meat of a zebra because there was a smell, and we were excommunicated from home. We were not allowed to eat meat from cows, drink milk, because we would have an effect to the herd. And it was such a big deal that you would even become excommunicated until you go get all the other elders to bring you back, to introduce you back at your home, just because you've eaten meat from zebra, which we did not know. Actually, we did not know that it was zebra's meat. So that is how serious it is among the Maasai community. And I think that is the reason why for many years we were able to, conserve, because you are not allowed to feed on any wild meat.
Wow, that's
Thank you.
really fascinating, Jackson. Thank you very much, Stephanie, for your question. It's great to see some new faces there at WTC. Really great that you guys are able to join in on this talk as volunteers. And yeah, just really fascinating, Jackson, to hear. I mean, I didn't know that. I've lived here my whole life, but also to hear your personal account of that story. Really, really fascinating. So thank you.
Sure.
Peterson, any more questions from your side?
Yeah, we have more questions.
Great.
Okay. I'm Kereto. I have 3 questions. The first one, we saw the hyenas entering bomas. Is there any compensation? Another one, as a conservancy, are you planning to have some core areas for your wildlife? The third one, on the issue of defencing, is it just aiming on the key corridors for wildlife or the whole conservancy? Thank you.
Thank you, Kereto. I've heard your questions very clearly, and I think it's because you draw closer to the mic. I don't know. Anyway, for the hyena compensation, I mentioned about that. We don't do compensation at the moment. Instead, what we are trying to do is protect the livestock of the people that are suffering from hyenas. I know other conservancies are doing that. We are not there as a conservancy because it requires a lot of resources, but we are working towards that. It's something, it's in our plan. But at the moment, what we were able to do at the moment is every time you lose your livestock, especially in big numbers, to hyenas at night, then we provide you with a predator-proof bomber to protect your livestock, and we always do that for free. So in terms of core area, yes, of course, we are at the moment we have a very good zonation map for the Conservancy, where we're trying to come up with areas, I'm going to share my screen so that you can be able to see that. Again, I lost the, oh, here you go. I'm going to share my screen. Are you able to see?
Not yet.
Okay, okay.
There we go. Yeah, it's coming up now. Yeah, there we are.
It's coming up. Okay, okay. I'm trying to find Sawa. This is our beautiful. This is a beautiful map of zonation within Pardamat. So in this map is identifying zones within the conservancy. It's identifying core areas, it's identifying corridors, it's identifying, so we have wildlife areas, we have, corridors that connect the conservancy to other places. So this is the work we are doing. And like when you look at the top of the map, there's a zone that is written to. We call it Zone A. That is a beautiful wildlife area that you guys from WTC know of. And we are working on improving that area to ensure that we have an exclusive wildlife area, and especially, and also, of course, along the hills, we also have very good wildlife area. So this is work in progress. We have a lot of plans as far as that is concerned, because we're also working towards ensuring that tourists within the conservancy can be able to get game drive viewing areas within the conservancy, as much as it's settled. But the other thing is that which we must appreciate, Pardamat is built on a dual use conservation model. So that is what we all need to understand. It is started as a dual use conservation model. That's the whole idea. You would hit a boma here, livestock here, and wildlife within the same place. That is the beauty. That is what sells PCA today. But yes, to your question, we are also trying to have more exclusive places for wildlife.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jackson. Yeah, that was really, as you said, a beautiful map, but really, really interesting as well. We love maps here at Share Screen Africa, especially to have such an amazing audience joining from all over. It really helps everyone to just visualize, what goes on in your mind and the location of the conservancy and everything. So thank you for sharing that. Peterson, any questions?
So there is another question that I did not answer on defensing. He asked me whether we are going to defense everywhere or only on wildlife corridors.
Oh, yeah.
And
go for it.
Yes, the ultimate goal is to have an open conservation area, to have PCA open, the whole of the conservation area open. So what we are doing at the moment, because the amount of land that has been fenced in PCA cannot be defensed in 5 years or in 1 decade, we're coming up with plans so that, but the ultimate goal is to have the whole area opened. The corridors that we've defensed at the moment is just a stepping stone into, securing the whole area. And future plan, like if you've seen the map, is actually even getting into the lower plains to restore back the loiter migration, and that is in the bigger picture. So the bigger picture for PCA is to have the whole land opened. But of course, we have areas like schools, trading centers within Pardamat, because they are there. Public institutions like clinics, churches will not be defensed. We'll have all those areas, enclosed. But of course, and we're also encouraging landowners to put small fences around their bomas so that the animals can be able to roam within and around their bomas without necessarily getting into their bomas for security purposes. Other than those small fences for homestead compounds, for public institutions, then the ultimate goal is to have the whole area opened.
Great, thank you, Jackson. Peterson?
Yes, we have one more.
Okay, great.
Okay, I'm Jackson. Do you think the more you acquire more land in Pardamat will sustain human and wildlife together?
Thank you for that question. Yes, I want to start by saying that this land had 0 fences. Probably 10 years ago, there was no single fence apart from the cattle enclosure. And then this land was more, productive. It was more productive. It was more, it sustained all of us that were living here with the wildlife. When you defense, you will save the community, the landowners from the expenses of repairing their fences every day. Because one thing that we must accept is the fact that we have wildlife in fenced areas, inside fences, and we have wildlife everywhere within the conservancy. When you defense, then you will lessen your burden. Instead of utilizing the money, most of your resources in putting up the fence, we can defense and have a communal system of equitably sharing the resources, both natural and monetary resources. Then that will then sustain the conservation area very well. And I know this land can accommodate all of us. It can accommodate wildlife and also the wildlife, the livestock that we have. Already there's the wildlife in PCA in big numbers and this fence. What we just need is to open the land so that we can all move freely and without causing any friction between human and wildlife.
Great, thank you. And thank you, Jackson, as well for that question. Peterson, if there are no more questions on your side, Brian or Diego, Brian, you've had your hand up for a very long time. Please feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Thank you so much for giving the opportunity to ask this question. And Jackson, thank you for that great work happening down at Pardamat. And now two questions I have for this. One is on the monitoring of the predator-proof boma. Yeah, I know I've had an opportunity to see a number of them, and just interested to know, is there a way that you are using at Pardamat to maybe monitor the effectiveness of the predator-proof boma, and maybe to find areas of weakness to improve on, maybe for subsequent predator-proof constructions? And apart from that, another question is on the, first to recommend, or rather to comment on the fencing that you're doing. And my concern, again, might not just be mine alone, but on the coexistence between human and wildlife. Because yes, we agree these lands were at some point open, but then with the increasing climate change issues and the reduction in grass reproduction in the landscapes, found that there is pressure on the grazing pressure on these landscapes has gone high, and then there is the conflicting interests where the livestock need the grass and the wildlife need the grass. So we find that there is one space shared between the livestock and wild animals. So then in this case, what are the strategies to ensure peaceful coexistence now that we've defenced, creating space for the corridors, which is a good thing to do? And then we have the pastoralists also interested in this landscape to graze for their livestock. Then now what's the strategy for a peaceful coexistence of these two interactions? Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Brian. Yeah, to your first question on monitoring of predator-proof bomas. We have our teams on the ground, that is rangers patrolling every day, collecting data of incidences, wildlife sightings, but also incidences within the community of predation. So we use them to monitor because that's where we get the reports. And so far, we've had, I think, since we've installed all these bombers, we've only reported one case of a predator-proof bomber that has been broken into by hyena. And I think it's because the bomber was not, there was some wires that were cut in the bomber, and therefore hyena got the opportunity to get into. So therefore, our rangers on their daily patrols normally monitor, because they are the ones that reports on these cases. On improvement, yes, we've now resorted into triple twisted wires, because before we were doing predator-proof bombers using a single chain link, and now we've resorted into using triple twisted chain links, which are more effective and more stronger than the first that we are using. So that is actually an upgrade that we've done when we realized that there was that one bomber which was broken into by hyenas and sheep were killed at night. So thank you for that. On the issue of defensing, one thing that I mentioned that we need to appreciate here is the fact that whether we defense or not, wildlife are already here and they're causing a problem. Elephants are in fences everywhere across the conservancy, be it leased land, fenced land, we have elephants everywhere. And the strategy here is actually to ask, number one, is to come up with a plan. You've seen my beautiful map. This is very much informed by the community as well. We sat down with the community when we were developing our management plan. We identified critical wildlife corridors. We identified historic wildlife corridors, even before we employed science, before we collared elephants, before we collared wildebeest. We first of all, we embarked on that data. We first of all sat with the community, and based on their indigenous knowledge, they identified areas where they think they are critical, migratory corridors for specific wildlife species. Elephants, corridors for wildebeest, corridors for giraffes and other wildlife. So what we are doing in that planning is actually to identify those areas and ask and inform the community on where they need to settle. If you're probably seated right in the middle of a corridor, we can always assist you to shift in order to avoid danger. Or push your fence. This is more dangerous when you fence. What you need to do, you can fence yourself in and at least push your fence several meters away from the corridor, so that you are not it's not being broken by elephants or other wildlife every time they want to access water or any other natural resource. So on the competition, we already are competing. What is left for us to do is to harmoniously compete. And that's what we are trying to do by trying to create open space so that we are not colliding with wildlife within the conservation area. Otherwise, competition is already ongoing, but it's a bit rowdy one. It's not properly done because we are competing in a bad way. We are brushing shoulders. Elephants are breaking fences. Wildebeest and zebras are running into people's fences and breaking them. So they're not only losing their grass, but at the same time, they are losing an income through repairing daily repairs of fences within on their land. So what is left with us is just to peacefully compete and try to create a space so that we accommodate them. Otherwise, they are forcing their way into our land.
Okay, thank you. And again, I'm sorry for making another
no problem.
question.
No, go ahead.
Again, interesting how you take the approach, but then my major concern is on the the predation now, because again, we understand it happens that these things are already happening. But don't you think we need to have some approach that, yes, we've had predatory bombers, but this one aids us in controlling the night predation. Yeah. Yes. So then what happens during in the grazing fields? Which strategies are using as Pardamat?
Yeah. In the grazing fields, like I mentioned, we have a team of 27 rangers, and their role is to do daily patrols, identify areas where lions or any other cats are, and they inform the herders of their presence. So that's part of their role. Their role is to provide security for wildlife, human, and their livestock. And part of it is to ensure that predation is not happening, and by giving information to the livestock keepers or herders on the presence of predators in given places. Plus, we're also encouraging, because what happens is that we can always give you a predator-proof bomber, so you are sleeping at night very well. Then you are sending children to herd during the day. We are highly encouraging people to be having grown-ups herding their livestock during the day. Then they disappeared. So yeah, that's how we are dealing with that.
Nice, thanks.
Great. Thank you so much. And thank you, Brian, for your questions. You don't ever have to apologize for asking more questions. This is what we love. We encourage this in our sessions, this back and forth discussion about these topics. So thank you.
Right,
Stuart, you've got your hand up and I see you put your camera on as well. Would you like to unmute and ask your question?
Thanks for that, CL. Sorry, it takes a wee while all the way out here over to the UK. Good afternoon, Jackson. And
good afternoon to you, Stuart. A long time. Good to see you again.
Yeah, good to see you, my friend. Thanks for your presentation, the usual demonstration of your GIS prowess. So thanks for that. I've got a couple of questions, but let's see how we go with the first one. One of your neighbours has got quite extensive experience in what we usually refer to as holistic grazing management. I wonder whether there's any opportunity to mimic a similar approach within PCA.
Yeah. Go on.
Do you want my second question?
Yeah. I just wanted to collect all the questions and
Sure, okay. And my second question refers to, there's been a lot of questions, not surprisingly, about bomas and predation. Again, in relation to some of the work that's been undertaken in other conservancies, there seems to be a lot of support if you have the people power to put in place mobile boma systems with clear demonstration of very significant uplift in the types of vegetation, particularly in diversity, which of course translates into your carbon aspirations. I wonder if, again, whether you will be looking to a more mobile boma led approach to your herd management into the future. And that'll do, Jackson.
Thanks, Stuart.
Good, thank you, Stuart. On the holistic management, we are now trying to implement it partially, especially in our cattle ranchlands, and where we're also trying to move, to employ a holistic management approach. Our herders were trained by the Gishu in their Maasai training center, or what do you call it here? Yeah, in their training center. And so partially we're implementing it, and what we are trying to do, because our area is, people are living everywhere in the area, in the core areas of the conservancy that we are working on creating, of course, that will be the approach. It's an area that will be closing for grazing, then we move with livestock to ensure that we responsibly graze within the rangelands. Yeah, it's something that we are going to mimic, and of course, it's work in progress. And of course, on the mobile bombers as well, we are utilizing that at the moment, especially in the in our livestock rangelands. Already we have mobile bombers, and yes, in the future, of course, we will look into buying more predator-proof, mobile bombers, especially for the community herds, so that when we have these areas that are closed for grazing, where during opening times, we can be able to move, to utilize the mobile bombers to enrich our rangelands. But of course, we are now already utilizing that to try and improve the rangelands down in the southern part of the conservancy, where the livestock project is.
Great,
And
thank you for that, Jackson.
Yeah, and thank you for reminding us we'll need to carry on for the rest of the conservancy. Of course, it's something we should factor in, and I will take it as a recommendation from you that we will need to utilize that instead of having a poorer system of grazing.
Thanks, Jackson. It seems like you and Stuart know each other, maybe from way back when. It's nice to see these events bringing old friends back together. Thank you very much for your question, Stuart, and also joining all the way from the UK. Really appreciate it. Eric, I see you've turned your camera on, and I also see that you've asked a number of questions in the chat. There's one question from Arnold that I'd just like to ask, and then after that, I'd love it if you would like to unmute yourself and ask your questions yourself. So let me just ask this one question, Jackson, from Arnold Aricha. Again, he asks, you showed us photos of giraffes and wildlife, sadly, that had been killed by fences. So Arnold's asking, whether there's electric voltage systems, which obviously would be very unfriendly to the ecosystem. So do you advise the installers to consider their voltages to keep away the animals rather than ending up in fatality?
Yes, those fences that kill the wildlife, the animals, are electric fences. So they are really electric. The problem is, what we came to realize is that whether electric or not, a fence is not a deterrent from wildlife. Wildlife will always move from point A to B, where they can access what they would need. The only thing that will happen is that you're going to kill you're going to kill them. So, electric fencing is not a solution, because those are electric already. What we need to do is just to create that space for this wildlife to move without necessarily hitting a fence. Otherwise, if you block them completely, you're either going to cause danger or to people. Like I mentioned, that we have cases of people being knocked down by elephants because the elephant did not have an alternative. They had a very serious electric fence just ahead of them, blocking their way, and someone was walking again along that fence, and the elephant knocked that person. So fencing, the only solution is reducing fences to create space for wildlife to move around the fences. Otherwise, if you block completely the corridor, the wildlife, either species will still knock into it and they will die. They will continue dying. Space is the only solution.
Great, thank you, Jackson. Stuart, I see that you've just put your hand up. I'm assuming maybe that's a comment or another question relating to this last question. So if I can just ask you to unmute, and then Eric, we will get to you shortly.
Thanks, CL. Yeah, let me lower my hand. It's distracting. Yeah, I mean, really, it's sort of semi-observation, but also a question. Quite rightly, Jackson, you brought to your audience the absolute importance, the strategic importance of Pardamat from a migratory point of view. And if we can reinstate the Pardamat Hills, particularly as a well-traversed migration pathway, particularly to the Loiter Hills. Again, I'm not sure everybody would know, but the Loiter Hills has its own internal migration, and which has all but collapsed. And one of the reasons why Pardamat is so significant, and we absolutely must get it to work as a migration pathway, is to try to get back that migration, which was many hundreds of thousands of animals, which is now, to all extent and all intents and purposes, being, is defunct. I just wondered what really, in an ideal world, Jackson, what would you like to see happen to really make the Pardamat Hills become the pathway to migration for the elephants in particular, but for all of the other wild stock that uses the hills?
I would quickly share my screen again and go to the map. On the map, to the right, there's a brown patch, top right, on that map, and that is the wild beast breeding zone. It is a lost zone. It used to be in the Mara. If I may take you back, we used to have two migrations. We have the southern migration, which is the Mara Serengeti migration that crosses over from the Serengeti National Reserve in Tanzania into the Maasai Mara National Reserve and to conservancies. And these migrations, and we also have what we called the Loiter migration. There used to be hundreds of thousands of individuals that would migrate.
I think we've lost you, Jackson.
From the Loiter Plains into the at Mara North back in the days. And, I believe exchange of genes will be one of the most important things that will happen there. And that kind of interaction and used to happen. So, due to land subdivision and fencing, we lost this brown patch, the whole of the Loiter plains that used to house, which used to be a home of more than 100,000 wildebeest and other migrating ungulates. Pardamat Conservation Area was a migration route between these other conservancies, between the Mara and the Loiter Plains. If you remove Pardamat, then linking the former Loiter Plains to the other conservancy and the National Reserve is not possible. And therefore, PCA is just a stepping stone into securing or restoring back the lost migration. If you look at this map, it's a boundary of what the Mara ecosystem should be. These are the boundaries of the Mara ecosystem. And it is within the county's spatial and ecosystem plan. And it's within the interest of the county government of Narok and the conservation community in Mara to ensure that we secure all this area for wildlife conservation. And of course, promoting models like what we are doing in Pardamat, because communities are now living on their land and they have no other space to go. And therefore, everybody realizes that the Pardamat conservation model, which was, I think, the first in Kenya and in the Mara landscape to be implemented, is the way to go. So what we are trying to do is to open that, former migratory route, the Loiter Plains. The vision here is to have the Loiter migration back. To have the Loiter migration, the Loiter Plains restored, so that we still we in future we still experience what we used to experience 2 decades ago. So what Stuart is when Stuart talks about the ecology, the importance. I talked about PCA as a corridor to the lower plains, and therefore what we are just trying to do is to open that corridor so that we slowly by slowly reclaim restore back the later migration within Pardamat. If you look at that map, we have a whole Shele, is that pink or very buoyant colors?
Yeah, that's purple, I think, the one you're pointing to, number 10.
Okay. So this, yes, exactly.
Yeah.
This is an extension, this is west of the Loita Plains. Just on the other side of the Pardamat Hills. And we've already identified that is a potential area that we've already started working on to secure land in our journey to restore back the Loita Plains. The only reason we are doing that in bits and in that kind of staggered way or phased approach, it's because it's very expensive to implement, it's very expensive to restore, and therefore we have to do it in stages or in phases. Otherwise, it will kill all of us when we try to restore it at once. I don't know whether I've answered your question, Stuart, or...
No, that's great, Jackson. I just wanted to make sure that everybody really got on board with the idea of just how important Pardamat is and how integral it is to all of the migration, both east and west, really, from where you're situated. And, keep up the good work. There's a lot to be done, but it's absolutely vital we get that Loita migration back in play, hopefully.
Yeah, so thank you. Yes, and of course, as you say, like you can see, Pardamat touches Naboisho to the south, and it touches Maranoth to the north. Of course, it is a very critical migratory corridor, especially on the hills, connecting Maranoth and Naboisho, and especially for the elephants and the wild dogs. As much as we are talking about opening some areas for the wildebeest to migrate to the lower plains in the future, but at the moment it's serving a very critical purpose of ensuring that elephants from Naboisho can access, salt licks in Maranoth and other natural resource that would want to access.
Okay, thanks.
Great, thank you. Thank you both so much as well for highlighting the importance of Pardamat with regards to migration. And we all know how important that is, and also how important it is as a consideration when you are thinking of putting together these conservancies. I have to say, on a personal note, wild dogs are my absolute favorite animals. So I love to hear about that they're coming back to Pardamat and that they're able to use that corridor. So well done. Another comment in the chat here from Arnold. He says, thank you for a great session. Continue with the conservation efforts at PCA. Kudos. And I think we all definitely echo that, having heard about the work that you're doing. So Eric, I see you've got your camera on. I know you said your internet connection was a little unstable, but we'd love to hear from you. And Eric, I would also like to ask you if you could maybe give us a small introduction about yourself. I've seen you here every week and you've always been very engaging with the questions, so we'd love to hear from you. Sorry, Eric, I'm still struggling to hear you. I think there sadly might be a problem with your microphone, but at least we were able to see your face. So I will then go ahead and read out the questions that you've put in the chat. So the first question from Eric Jackson is, how have your emerging problems been? For example, I think Eric, you're meaning an overwhelming interest in groups by a large population. Potentially, is that, Eric, the increasing population, and how have you dealt with that, Jackson?
Yeah. I think I can understand this question.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, and if I start with that first question, is that of course population is one big challenge that we're facing today. If you look at our land ownership, we are talking of 850 landowners. Dealing with 850 people to, agree on common grounds, of course, it's always not very easy. It's a big challenge. And I know population growth within the area is also a big challenge because, of course, what it means, the more the people, more space is required for them. And I think we are trying to highly encourage the communal living within PCA, and especially within the families. We are not asking people to pull together and stay in one big village. What we're trying to do, we're encouraging people to utilize 10% of their land in one, and concentrating in one space to make make the bomber build the houses and live within that 10%. So that's how we are trying to encourage. Otherwise, when we have everybody putting up a house in every corner of the family's land, then it becomes difficult for us to be able to manage, and we are going to lose. So that is what we are trying to encourage people to do within the conservation area.
Great, thank you, Jackson. And then another question from Eric in the chat. First of all, he said awesome work, which we all agree on. He's asking, what's the uniqueness of PCA that makes it different from other conservancies as far as being an area that's accommodating humans and wildlife?
PCA is unique in the sense that it is healing with it's rich in natural resources. You talk of water throughout the year. In other conservancies, you might not be able to find water throughout the year, especially even in dry seasons. And in harsh droughts, in PCA, you will still find water for both wildlife and livestock and people. And of course, its model is premised on a dual use model. That is a uniqueness, because in other conservancies, there's no bombers in, no public institutions in. But here we have everything, including churches, clinics, schools, and trading centers. That is within the same area. And we have fences, very interesting. And in other conservancies, you don't have all these things that are a bit not conservation friendly according to us. So in that sense, where the fact that we have all these together within one space makes it very unique. And we have to work to live with it as is, because we are not going to change anything. All we need to change is just to rearrange how we settle or how we are living or occupying the space, so that we can accommodate everybody, including the wildlife and everything.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jackson. I have to say, the more I hear about Pardamat, the more it makes me want to visit. And I hope I will be able to do so.
You're most welcome.
Thank you.
And you're just a few kilometers away. Just a few hours.
Just in Naivasha, it's not far.
Yeah, you need to come. So the other uniqueness of PCA is when guests are doing a game drive in Pardamat, they will suddenly hit a bomber and elephants on the side. What a beautiful combination. You can imagine having a photo of zebras grazing with livestock. Where else can you get that if not in PCA? You can look at that slide. You have zebras, you have elephants with, drinking from the same water hole with calves or cows, cattle for that matter. And you have cows grazing with zebras. So that is the uniqueness. That is what makes it very unique. And you would still have wildlife and you have everything, meaning that you don't need to take away communities for you to have wildlife. Conservation can happen with the, with the community, and not conservation against communities.
Absolutely, I completely agree, Jackson. And I think, yeah, those images are very unique, but also I think it allows you to sort of see a little bit into the past, because that's what life would have looked like, back before fences or anything even existed, So yeah, really interesting.
Exactly.
Thank you.
Exactly.
We've got one more question from Eric, and I think sadly this will have to be our last question because we only have the WTC students until 1. And so one more quick question from Eric, and then I will do closing comments. So Eric's asking, as PCA, how many cases have you recorded of people being killed by wild animals, and what have been your interventions as PCA? Obviously, we know this is an area where human activity happens on a daily basis. So how do you manage that?
From my culture as a Maasai, we always don't count death cases.
Yeah.
But of course, we've encountered several cases of elephants, knocking down people in PCA. But what we normally try to do, we support families. Like a recent case that we experienced December last year. I know we have a data of all those cases. They're not very many. It's not as alarming, but the only alarming thing, 2 cases that I know of 2 old men of over 80 years that were knocked by elephants. It was a set of fences. Sudden, it's so sad that someone is just dying because of a fence. If that fence was not there, they would have survived. Anyway, what we are trying to do is a conservancy. In cases where people lose their loved ones, we always get into support, try to bridge the gaps they leave behind. Like for the recent case, that old man had school-going kids, and we just took to ourselves that we are going to pay school fees for them, for the school-going children, so that their family is not losing their breadwinner, and that gap widens, and could be a family that already was struggling, and the older man that was taking care of that is normal. So what we can do, we can always offer bursaries or scholarships to school-going children of those families. Otherwise, we cannot be able to compensate. It's only government that is trying to do what they are calling it in court, compensation. Otherwise, nobody has the value of human life. So yeah, we are consoling with families in that way.
Great, thank you, Jackson. Yeah, fantastic work. It's really, really sad, and unfortunately, these things do happen in this kind of situation. But it's great to hear about the work that you're doing to help with those situations. So I will say that sadly our session, I think, has come to the end. I know the WTC students will probably have other classes to go to, and it's been a very long but very amazing session. And just one comment here from Stuart Thompson in the chat. Many thanks to all the students at WTC. You have much to learn in PCA, I agree. And also to the African Impact volunteers. The data you collect as part of your time in PCA is absolutely vital in terms of helping to focus that future management, some of which you've heard about today. And I'd like to add to that as well. Thank you so much. It's really great to see the volunteers in as well. And I hope that Stephanie and the rest of you, if you're here for the next couple of weeks, we will be continuing this session, this series. We've got another session same time next week, where we'll be hearing from Alistair Nicklin, who actually is the manager of Naboisho Conservancy. So it's great to be able to have those different aspects of all the different conservancies and how you all work together. And also, yeah, thank you from Eric and Katoy. Thank you so much, Jack, for your great work and the entire PCA fraternity. So from me, I want to say thank you very much to our wonderful audience, all the great questions we've had today and discussions. Thank you to the WTC students. Thank you to Peterson, our primary audience today. And finally, but last but not least, Jackson, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge with us, donating your time. Really, really wonderful to hear about the amazing work you do at Pardamat.
Good. I also want to say a big thank you to everyone for taking your time to listen to the very many words from me. And I hope they are of help and the enriching in your knowledge. And thank you too for also the great questions that are really eye-openers to us as a conservancy, because these interactive sessions are not only meant to probably impart knowledge to learners and people out there, but also to help us think loud and outside the box from what we are doing. Because most of the questions that we receive from you guys are actually eye-openers for us to, a wake-up call for us to do a bit more than what we are doing today. And yeah, looking much forward to interacting with you guys in future. Thank you so very much. And for the WTC students, I know these are people that we meet every day. Hi guys, I'm really happy to see you participate or joining these sessions. And also for the the Edu Africa volunteers, we continue working together to better the Pardamat conservation area. I know they play a very great role in supporting us in environmental conservation, opening up roads, wildlife counts. They are doing an amazing work, and thank you for that, and look much forward to working with you guys on the ground today. Asante sana.
Thank you, Jackson. Asanteni, Ashe Oleng, Stuart, Eric, thank you all for your wonderful questions.
And hope to see you, Stuart, again.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Bye-bye.